Welcome to Chandu's TechNet. In this video, I will show you how to add database to an availability group and how to synchronize data across all the secondary replicas. Different ways to synchronize data across all secondary replicas. Right? Let's assume that you have already an existing availability group and you have one or multiple secondary replicas added to the availability group. Right? Let's directly jump into the demo so that I will show you how to add database to an availability group and various options we have to synchronize the data across all secondary replicas. Right? So in this demo, I have two availability replicas called as like 2012 R2 node 1 and 2012 R2 node 2. Right? I have two availability replicas and I have already created an existing availability group called test AC. Now I would like to add database to an availability group. Let's create an create a database so that I will show you the various options or prerequisites we have to have before adding database to the availability group. So you have different options. You can use create database T-SQL query to create a database, or you can use GUI to create a database. I'm using GUI DB1. I'm creating a GUI. I'm using GUI to create a database called DB1. Right. So before adding database to an availability group, the first prerequisites is the database recovery model. The database recovery model should be full recovery model. So make sure that if you want to add database to an availability group, the database recovery model should be set to full recovery model. If it is simple or transaction, if it is simple or bulk log recovery model, the log file is not fully available to scan, right? So the always on is so something that it will have to scan the transaction log file to get the log blocks. So if it is simple recovery model, the transactions will be truncated, whereas bulk log recovery model, we will have the minimally logged transactions. So that is the reason we should have to have a full recovery model to add database to an availability group. That is your first prerequisites. Now, let's add database to the availability group. I have created database and now let's go ahead and add database to an availability group, right? You again, so you have a couple of options where you can use T-SQL query, or you can go ahead and go ahead and, so add database through GUI, graphical user interface, right? Right click and add database. Click next. And here the database is DB1. If you see the DB1, it says like full backup is required. So what does it mean? Before adding database to an availability group, the prerequisites, another prerequisite is to have a full backup. So we should have to take the full backup before even add database to an availability group, right? The first prerequisite is to have a full recovery model. Second one is to take a full backup of the database. Full backup should be taken. Let's go ahead and take the full backup. You can use either T-SQL again or through the task and backup. And I will go ahead and use the T-SQL query database DB1 to disk equal to the location where you would like to take the backup. Since I am not using this backup, I am taking this backup to a null device. Null device where you will not actually taking the backup of your databases. It is taking to a null device so that I will not use this backup to anywhere, right? Don't use this or don't take so null device backup on your any environment like production or even so any lower environment. Don't use that until it is a test and you are doing some test databases, right? So I'm taking the null device backup to a null device. Since I'm not going to use this backup file to restore anyway. Now I have taken a backup to null device and let's refresh the databases, and you see here the prerequisites are met. It meets prerequisites and the option checkbox option is enabled here. enable, check this database I would like to add and click next. This is where you will have to connect all your secondaries, right? Once you add database to the always on availability group, once you add database on the primary, the database should be replicated on all secondary server. Otherwise, there is no concept of high availability or disaster recovery, right? So for that purpose, you will have to connect all your secondary servers here, right? Whatever secondaries you have. In this scenario, I have only one secondary replica and I will be connecting to the secondary server. See here, I have connected. If you have 7 or 8 secondary replicas, you can use connect all. Whereas if you connect one, it will be connected automatically to every secondary replicas. You can try that if you have multiple secondary replicas, right? Click next. Right. So this is where the options we have to choose how you would like to initialize your secondary databases, right? This place, this place is just to add database to the primary. This is done. So nothing, so measure. So if you enable this and your database would be adding to the primary server. But how this database should be available on all secondary servers, this is where this page will define or decide how to initialize the secondary databases. So we have, four options majorly. One is automatic seeding. Second one is full database and log backup, join only, or skip data synchronization. So we can use any of these four options to initialize the secondary, right? What is, I'll go with last. What is skip data initialization? So we are telling that don't synchronize the data on secondaries. You just create a database on the primary or just add database on the primary. I will take care later point of time, maybe a day after or maybe after some time, I will go ahead and restore the databases on my own. So you no need to take care of any action. So you skip that synchronization part, right? We are telling SQL Server to skip the initialization part, and I will be going to restore the database in later point of time. That is what the skip data synchronization. If you see that, the wizard says choose this option if you want to perform your own database and log backup of each database, each primary database. So suppose if you would like to take a backup and restore in a later point of time, right? Then you can use this option. Good. Now, what is join only? Join only, let's say you have a backup already taken and restore the backup on secondary, right? So you have a backup already taken and restored already with no recovery, right? That is another prerequisite to join to synchronize on secondaries is you should restore your database with no recovery, right? If you already restored the database on secondary and you just wanted to join the database to the availability group, you can select this option, right? The third option, full database and log backup. If you don't have a backup already taken, or you don't have a backup already restored on the secondary, and if you select this, you will have to provide a network location. See here, this is where you will have to provide the network share, where this wizard, it will take a backup of your databases and required transaction log backups and restore it on the secondary server. So what does it mean? If you select this option, and you will have to provide a network location. Let's say, for example, this is my network location. And to this network location, the backup will be taken. And from this network location, the backup will be restored on the secondary server. This is how the full and log backup option works. Now, this option is in like I would say, like, so was a new feature starting from 2016. Microsoft has announced starting from 2016 the automatic seeding feature, because there are some uh, problems using full database and log backup. Because if you use this full database and log backup, and if there is a network delay, then you will have some issues, right? In between, if there is a network issue, then your synchronization will be broken. Or join only, this option is fine. Like if you could restore the backup, then it is okay. But what if you have a huge database which you cannot restore, or if it takes longer to restore, then again you will have to use the other options. Or if you restore a log backup, and if you have already taken another log backup on primary, again you will have to restore frequent log backups on secondaries, right? To avoid all these problems, Microsoft has announced automatic seeding starting from 2016. So how that works, automatic seeding, it takes a VDI backup in background, virtual device interface. It's a kind of snapshot backup of your databases, and it restore on the secondary. It moves to the secondary and restore it on the secondary with no recovery, and it helps, or it joins the database on the secondary itself, right? You will no need to provide any physical or network location. You no need to take a backup and restore it on the secondary. And if you use this option, it automatically takes the snapshot of your databases through VDI backup or VDI interface, and it will restore it on the secondary databases, secondary server, right? In this scenario, in our demo, like I will be using this automatic seeding. And the most important thing, if you use automatic seeding, is to have, you should have is same location on both the servers, right? For example, if you have a database on the primary in E drive, on the secondary, the location should be the same. Otherwise, automatic seeding would not work, right? That is something that you will have to take care. Now, automatic seeding I'm using because I have the same location on primary and secondary. Next. And it will check other so the validation checks, like either disk space and databases, whether database is already exist on the secondary or not. If the database is already exist, this check will fail, right? And check for existing database files on the server instance that hosts the secondary. Suppose if any files are existing on the destination, it will check for compatibility of the database file location. See here, it checks the source and destination data file location. Checking for compatibility of the data file locations on the server instance that hosts replicas, right? It validates whether both the servers have the same location or not. Once everything is succeeded, you can go ahead and next click. You can either use a script out, or you can just finish the databases, right? This is just a simple empty database. So the database, adding database should be faster. And if you see here, right, DB1 isn't synchronized and added to the availability group. Whereas if you see that on the secondary, DB1 is in synchronizing state, right? Why this is synchronizing? Because I have configured an asynchronous replica, right? So availability mode, I set it to asynchronous. That is the reason you see that on the secondary as synchronizing, right? Now, okay, this is good. I was able to add database to an availability group through GUI, graphical user interface. That is fine. Okay, let's take another scenario, whereas you have a database which is enabled for TD, or which is enabled for encryption. Okay, let's see that I have this database which is part of availability, which is not part of availability group, and I would like to add this database to an availability group. Right click, add database. Next. And if you see here, this met all the prerequisites. For example, if you go here and properties, options, and it has the full recovery model, and it is not asking any backup, right, as a prerequisite. So what it is telling, still it is not enabled. It says like contain, the wizard cannot add a database, contain a database encryption key, right? What it says, this wizard, if you add database through GUI, it is not allowed you to add database which is part of encryption, right? So in this, if there is an encryption configure enabled on the database, you will have some password for the encryption, right? So this GUI doesn't have that option to have that encrypted password, or certificate needs to be enabled, created on the destination. Whatever reason, you cannot add database to an availability group because it has the certificate enabled. In that case, what you will do? First thing, let's check whether a TDE is enabled or not. So we have an option. I mean, we have a DMV or system catalog. You can say sys dot databases is encrypted, right? So how you will validate whether encryption TD is enabled or not? More on like this is just to validate TD is enabled or not, is encrypted. And whereas I see that the database TDE is enabled. So TDE, transparent data encryption, I will take a different session so that I will explain how to take a backup, how to configure TDE and all. In this scenario, in this video, just understand that we are going to add database to an availability group, which is part of encryption, which is so TDE enabled. Now, I cannot add database through GUI. So what you will have to do, you will have to have a T-SQL query to enable add database to an availability group. Excuse, not this one. Right. So this is just a simple, so T-SQL query, alter database name, alter availability group. So you'll have to provide the availability group name here, test AZ, and the database you would like to add. So the database name is this one. AdventureWorks 2016 ext, right? I would like to add this database to an availability group, and this database is encryption enabled, where you would not be able to add database to the availability group because it requires the certificate or encryption key. Now let's add this database to the availability group. Command successfully executed, and if you just refresh here, okay, let's see, node 1, alter data, alter availability group, add database, availability group test AZ, add database, adventure works to 16. Okay, okay, why this is not taking? Let's see. Right, so this is taking some time, so because it has to read through all the pages, like whatever encrypted, so it has to add this database to the availability group. Right, now let's see what is going on here on the secondary. Just refresh here. See here, it is in restoring state. Let's see what is exactly is going on, right? Select star from sys.dm underscore hadr automatic seeding. So this is your DMV to identify the seeding status. Okay, where is that? Right, if you see the start time is 12:36, that is where, like, so we started. This is, I think it is in UTC time where it is showing as 12:36. It is currently, the status is currently as seeding. Select start from sys.dm underscore hadr underscore physical seeding stats. So it gives more granular information of the current database seeding status, right? Source, initial state description is succeeded, and what is the current status? Like, I think it is completed, but let me see. See here, the database is added and synchronizing here. Okay, so what exactly it happens? Like, whenever you add database to the availability group through T-SQL, right? Through T-SQL, if an automatic seeding is enabled, if automatic seeding is enabled, so then you are automatically synchronizing the database on the secondary, right? So then you will have to have a automatic seeding enabled. So how to validate automatic seeding is enabled or not? So you have again the DMV, select start from sys.dm underscore hadr sys dot availability replicas, right? Automatic seeding description. Availability sys dot availability replicas. Okay. Right. So seeding mode description is automatic. Right. So if automatic seeding is enabled, and if you execute alter database, alter availability group, or if you add database through T-SQL, then the database automatically seeding to the secondary and join to the availability group on the secondary server. Okay, so what we have learned, how to add database to the availability group. So what are the prerequisites to add database to the availability group? First, the database recovery model should be automatic. Recovery model should be full. The database should be like, we should have to take a backup, full backup of the database before even join to the availability group. Once joined a database to the availability group, we have different options to join or synchronize to the availability group. What options we have? Automatic seeding, where it works as a VDI backup in backend and restore it on the secondary through a snapshot. Second option is full, and full option is to take a backup on the network share and log backup on the network share, and it will restore it on its own to the secondary server. Third option is join only, where you have third option is join only, where you will have to provide a so the third one is join only, where you must have already taken a backup and restore it on the secondary with a no recovery option, right? Fourth one is not synchronizing, skips initial synchronization, whereas you will not have the database synchronization on the secondary. So you're just skipping the synchronization, where you would be going to restore it on your own pace, like you will restore later on the secondary server. So these are the prerequisites. Now, what if the database is already enabled, or if the database you are not able to add from the GUI? Like, the scenario is if the database is configured for TDE or encryption, right? So if the database is enabled for encryption, through GUI, you would not be able to add database. You will have to have a T-SQL query to add database to the availability group, right? So this is the T-SQL query, altered availability group. So we are altering or modifying to the availability group and add database, the database name, which is enabled for TDE. And this query, it will add database to the primary. If the seeding is enabled, automatic seeding is enabled, then it will should be restored on the secondary as well. This is starting from 2016. Before 2016, we don't have a automatic seeding feature introduced, automatic seeding feature available. Okay, so this is how you would be able to add the database to an availability group. So I will try to record more sessions if it is needed. Keep watching. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.